The fluorescent lights above me flickered with that persistent hum that had become the soundtrack of my exhaustion. I pressed my palm against the cool stainless steel counter, trying to ground myself, trying to remember how to breathe without it hurting. The cafe was empty now, that dead hour between the lunch rush and the afternoon coffee crowd. And I was grateful for the silence, even if it left too much room for thoughts I didn't want to entertain. My reflection stared back at me from the espresso machine's polished surface. Hollow eyes, hair escaping from a ponytail that had given up hours ago, the green apron hanging loose on a frame that had lost weight I couldn't afford to lose. 23 years old, and I looked like I'd lived twice that. The smell of burnt coffee grounds mixed with the vanilla syrup we used for lattes, creating a sickly sweet aroma that used to comfort me but now just made my stomach turn. I could hear the ancient refrigerator groaning in the back, the traffic outside on Lexington Avenue, the distant wail of a siren that made my shoulders tense automatically. I wasn't supposed to be working today. I was supposed to be at the clinic, getting the results, hearing whether the tests had found what I already knew they'd find. But Sarah had called in sick, again, and Mr. Patterson had that edge in his voice that meant he was one employee short of closing early and docking everyone's pay. So here I was, smiling at strangers, pretending my hands weren't shaking when I poured their coffee, pretending the cramping in my abdomen was just stress. The bell above the door chimed, and I straightened automatically, muscle memory forcing my face into something resembling welcome. "Good afternoon. How can I?" The words died in my throat. He wasn't what I expected. Nobody who walked into Patterson's cafe ever was what I expected. But this was different. He wore a simple gray hoodie, worn jeans, and a Yankees cap pulled low, the uniform of trying to blend in. But everything about him screamed that he didn't belong here. The way he moved, for one thing, careful, measured, like every step was calculated. His hands stayed visible, relaxed but ready, and his eyes, even shadowed by the cap, swept the room with the kind of attention that made my skin prickle. He was older than the usual crowd, maybe late 30s, with dark stubble that looked intentional and a jawline sharp enough to cut. But it was something else, something I couldn't name, that made me take a step back, an energy, a weight to his presence that seemed to press against the very air. "Coffee," he said, his voice low and rough, like gravel wrapped in velvet, black. "Sure, I fumbled for a cup, hating how my hands trembled, how obvious I must look. "For here or to go?" "Here." He moved to the corner booth, the one with a view of both the door and the back exit, I noticed, and sat with his back to the wall. Even slouched in that hoodie, he radiated something dangerous, something that made every instinct I had scream at me to be careful. I focused on the coffee, letting the familiar ritual calm me. Grind, tamp, extract. The machine hissed and gurgled, and I watched the dark liquid stream into the cup, thinking about how simple this was, how routine. Pour coffee, serve customer, collect tip, repeat until your feet go numb, and your smile becomes a permanent fixture, even when you're alone. When I brought the cup to his table, I kept my eyes down, a habit I'd perfected over years of being invisible. But I felt his gaze on me, heavy and assessing, and it made my pulse quicken in a way that had nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with something I didn't want to examine. "Thank you," he said, and there was something in his tone that made me glance up despite myself. Our eyes met for just a second. His were dark, almost black, with flecks of gold that caught the light, and I felt something shift in my chest. Then I looked away quickly, professionally, and retreated behind the counter where I belonged. The cafe remained empty, except for him. I busied myself with cleaning already clean surfaces, restocking napkins that didn't need restocking, anything to avoid the weight of his presence in the corner, but I could feel him watching me, and it made my skin hot and cold at the same time. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with fingers that had gone numb. "Clinic. Ms. Hayes, you missed your appointment. Please call to reschedule. This is urgent." The text blurred as tears welled up without permission. I blinked hard, trying to force them back, but my body had other plans. The cramping had gotten worse over the past hour. A deep, relentless ache that radiated from my lower back through my entire abdomen. I pressed my hand against my stomach, feeling the slight swell there that nobody else would notice but that I couldn't stop noticing. 12 weeks. That's how far along I was. 12 weeks of knowing and not knowing, of hoping and being terrified of hope, of wondering how I was going to survive this alone. Marcus was gone. Not dead. Worse. Just gone. Vanished 3 weeks after I'd told him, after he'd smiled that charming smile and promised me everything would be okay, that we'd figure it out together. His phone disconnected, his apartment emptied. His job at the import company, the one he'd been so proud of, the one that paid well enough that I'd let myself believe in a future, apparently never existed at all. The tears came harder now, hot and angry and frightened all at once. I turned away from the dining area, facing the wall of coffee syrups as if they held answers, and let myself break just a little, just for a moment, just until I could pull myself back together. "Are you all right?" I jumped, spinning around. He was standing at the counter now, his coffee cup empty in his hand. I hadn't heard him move. How had I not heard him move? "I'm fine," I said automatically, swiping at my face with the back of my hand. "Sorry, do you need a refill?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied me with an intensity that made me want to crawl out of my skin, not leering, not cruel, just seeing me. Really seeing me. When was the last time anyone had actually looked at me like I was a person instead of a function? "You're crying," he said, and it wasn't a question. "I'm fine," I repeated, reaching for his cup. "Really, it's been a long day." His hand closed around my wrist. Not hard, not threatening, but firm enough to stop me. I froze. Every nerve in my body suddenly screaming alert. But when I met his eyes, what I saw there wasn't danger. It was something else. Something almost like concern. "When's the last time you ate?" he asked. The question was so unexpected that I actually laughed, a broken little sound that came out wrong. "What?" "You're shaking, you're pale, and you look like you're about to collapse." He released my wrist and gestured to the nearest booth. "Sit down." "I can't. I'm working. There's no one here but me, and I own the place." The words hung in the air between us, and I felt my brain struggle to process them. "What?" He pulled off the cap, running his hand through dark hair threaded with silver at the temples. "Patterson sold me this cafe 6 months ago. I've been meaning to stop by, see how things are running. Guess I picked a good day for it." I stared at him, trying to reconcile this man, dangerous, powerful, radiating an authority that made my bones ache, with the idea of him owning a small cafe in Midtown. It didn't fit. Nothing about him fit. "You're the new owner?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Technically, I own several properties in the city. This is just one of them." He moved back to his booth, and somehow it felt like a command that I follow. "Sit. Please." I shouldn't have. Every rational part of my brain told me to maintain distance, maintain professionalism, maintain the walls that kept me safe. But my legs were shaking, and the cramping was getting worse, and something about the way he said "please," like he wasn't used to asking for anything, made me obey. I slid into the booth across from him, my hands twisting together in my lap. This close, I could smell him, expensive cologne underneath, something dark and woodsy that probably cost more than my monthly rent, but also something else. Cigarette smoke, maybe, and leather, and a scent I couldn't name that made my pulse quicken. "What's your name?" he asked. Emma Hayes." "Emma." He said it like he was testing it, tasting it. "How long have you worked here?" 2 years. Almost 3. I didn't know why I was answering, why I wasn't making excuses and getting back behind the counter where I belonged. Mr. Patterson, the old owner, he was kind when I needed a job. No experience required. And the new owner? How's he treating his employees? I blinked, confused. I've never met him. You. I've never met you. The manager handles everything. Something flickered across his face, too quick to read. "And your tips? Your pay? Is it enough?" The laugh that escaped me was bitter. "Is it ever enough?" He leaned back, studying me with that unnerving intensity. "You're pregnant." The words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at him in horror and shock. "How?" "You keep touching your stomach, protective, unconscious." His voice was matter-of-fact, almost clinical. You didn't drink the coffee I saw you pour yourself earlier. You're exhausted in a way that goes beyond a long shift. And you have that look. What look? I whispered. Like you're carrying the weight of the world and trying to convince yourself you're strong enough to hold it. Tears burned behind my eyes again, and I hated myself for it. Hated how transparent I was, how easily he'd seen through every defense I'd built. I need to get back to work. The father? Gone. The word came out sharp, jagged. Is there anything else I can get you, Mr. Where? I stood, needing distance, needing air, needing this conversation to end before I completely fell apart in front of a stranger who apparently owned the place I worked. I don't know. He just left, disappeared, and I really need to. The cramping suddenly intensified, a sharp, vicious twist that made me gasp and grab the edge of the table. The room tilted sideways, and I felt his hands on my arms, steady and strong, lowering me back into the seat. Emma. His voice was closer now, urgent. Emma, look at me. I forced my eyes open, not remembering when I'd closed them. His face was inches from mine, those dark eyes locked on me with a focus that should have been terrifying but somehow wasn't. The pain. How long? All day. It's probably normal. It's not normal. He pulled out a phone. Expensive, sleek, probably worth more than my car, and was already dialing. When's your appointment? I missed it. I had to work. The words tumbled out, and I couldn't stop them. Couldn't stop any of it. I can't afford to miss shifts, and I can't afford the doctor, and I can't afford any of this, and I don't know what I'm going to do. Dominic, he said into the phone, cutting me off. I need a car at Patterson's Café on Lexington. Now. And call Dr. Rivera. Tell her I'm bringing someone in. A pause. I don't care if she's with a patient. This is an emergency. He ended the call and looked at me, and there was something in his expression that made my chest tight. Not pity. Something fiercer. Something almost like rage, but not directed at me. What's your full name? I managed to ask, my voice shaking. Vincent. He helped me to my feet, his grip careful but unbreakable. Vincent Moretti. And you're not going back to work today, Emma. You're going to the hospital. I can't afford... You're not paying. He guided me toward the door, moving with that same calculated precision, his body positioned between me and the windows like he was shielding me from something I couldn't see. And that piece of shit who left you? What was his name? I shouldn't have told him. Something in his tone warned me that this was a dangerous question, that my answer would set something in motion I didn't understand. But the pain was getting worse, and I was scared. And his hand on my back felt like the first solid thing I'd touched in months. Marcus, I whispered, as a black SUV pulled up to the curb with tinted windows so dark they looked like mirrors. Marcus Chen. Vincent Moretti went very, very still. Then he opened the door of the SUV, and I saw the gun holstered at the side of the driver, who nodded at him with a kind of deference that made my blood run cold. Get in, Vincent said softly, and it wasn't a request. That's when I realized I knew that name. Marcus Chen. Vincent Moretti. And the way Vincent's jaw had tightened when I said it, the way his hand had flexed like he was restraining himself from violence. I knew that name because Marcus had mentioned it once, drunk and boastful, talking about a big score, about money he was going to steal from the right people, about how he'd disappear where no one could find him. Vincent Moretti wasn't just a cafe owner, and Marcus hadn't just abandoned me. He'd stolen from a man who looked at me now with eyes that promised protection and destruction in equal measure. The leather seat was cold against my legs, or maybe I was shaking so hard that everything felt cold. The SUV moved through traffic with aggressive efficiency, and I sat rigid in the back seat, hyper-aware of Vincent beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, far enough that we weren't touching. The driver hadn't said a word since we'd gotten in, just nodded at Vincent's clipped directions, and drove like the laws of physics were optional. My mind was racing faster than the car. Marcus had stolen from Vincent Moretti. Marcus, with his easy smile and cheaper suits than he pretended, had stolen from a man who owned properties across the city, who traveled with armed security, who made a single phone call and had a private doctor waiting, who was, If the ice in my veins was any indication, exactly the kind of man you didn't steal from. "Breathe," Vincent said quietly, and I realized I'd been holding my breath. "The cramping? Is it constant or does it come in waves?" I focused on the question, grateful for something concrete to anchor to. "Waves. It gets worse, then better, then worse again." His jaw tightened, and he pulled out his phone again, typing something quickly. The device looked almost comically small in his hands that I noticed now, really noticed. Scarred knuckles, a thick silver ring on his right hand with some kind of emblem I couldn't make out. Hands that had clearly done violence, but held me with surprising gentleness. "Dr. Rivera is one of the best obstetricians in the city," he said, still typing. "She'll take care of you." "I can't pay for this." My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. "I don't have insurance that covers—" "I told you. You're not paying." He looked up from the phone, and those dark eyes pinned me in place. "Emma, listen to me very carefully. Right now, the only thing that matters is making sure you and your baby are safe. Everything else, the money, the bills, all of it, I'll handle." "Why?" The word burst out before I could stop it. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Why would you—" "Because that baby is Marcus Chen's." His voice went flat, emotionless, which somehow made it more terrifying than if he'd shouted. "Which means it's leverage I need. And because you're an innocent person caught in a situation you didn't ask for, and I'm not in the habit of letting innocent people suffer." The words should have terrified me, should have made me demand he let me out of the car, made me run as far as I could from whatever dark world I'd stumbled into. But the cramping chose that moment to intensify again, sharp and vicious, and I doubled over with a gasp that was half sob. Vincent's hand was on my back immediately, steady and warm through my thin t-shirt. "How far?" "What?" I managed through gritted teeth. "How far along?" 12 weeks, maybe 13. I haven't been to a doctor yet." The silence that followed was heavy enough to suffocate. I felt rather than saw him exchange a look with the driver, some wordless communication that made the car speed up even more. "Marcus," Vincent said after a long moment, his hand still on my back, tracing small, unconscious circles that were probably meant to be comforting, but just made me more aware of him. "When did he tell you he worked for an import company?" I tried to think through the pain, through the fear. "When we met, 6 months ago. He said he worked in international shipping, that he traveled a lot for business. And you believed him." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. I had no reason not to. He seemed normal, nice. He took me to decent restaurants, never asked to come to my apartment, was always respectful. I laughed bitterly. Guess that should have been the first red flag. Guys who are that perfect are usually hiding something. He was hiding a lot of things. Vincent's voice was still that dangerous, emotionless monotone. "Marcus Chen doesn't work in international shipping. He worked for me. Past tense. He was a mid-level accountant who handled the books for several of my legitimate businesses. Restaurants, cafes, a few nightclubs. Nothing glamorous. Nothing that would have impressed you." The SUV pulled up to a building I recognized, Mount Sinai, one of the best private hospitals in Manhattan. The kind of place I'd walked past 1,000 times, knowing I'd never be able to afford to walk through the doors. 3 months ago, Vincent continued as the driver opened the door, Marcus Chen stole $2.3 million from me. He cooked the books, created fake vendors, siphoned money slowly enough that it took us weeks to notice, and when we did notice, he disappeared. Vanished. We've been looking for him ever since. I felt numb as he helped me out of the car, his hand firm on my elbow. A woman in scrubs was already waiting at the entrance with a wheelchair, and I let Vincent guide me into it, because my legs felt like they'd stopped working entirely. "Mr. Moretti," the woman said. "Dr. Rivera," I assumed. She was in her 50s, with kind eyes and competent hands that immediately went to my wrist, checking my pulse. "Let's get her upstairs." The hospital was a blur of white walls and concerned faces, and questions I answered on autopilot. Yes to the pain. No to any bleeding. No to previous pregnancies. No to prenatal care. Yes to stress. Yes to not eating enough. No to feeling safe. That last one I didn't say out loud. But somehow I thought Vincent heard it anyway. They got me into a private room. Of course it was private. Probably cost more per night than I made in a month. And Dr. Rivera performed an examination while Vincent waited outside. The ultrasound technician was quiet and efficient, and I stared at the ceiling, trying not to think about what they might find, trying not to imagine the worst. There, Dr. Rivera said softly, and turned the monitor toward me. The baby was tiny, just a blob on the screen with a flickering light in the center, but that flickering was steady, strong, impossibly fast. Heartbeat is good, Dr. Rivera said, and I felt something in my chest crack open. Strong. You're measuring at about 13 weeks, which matches what you told us. The cramping is concerning, but I don't see any signs of miscarriage. Your blood pressure is elevated, and you're definitely dehydrated and malnourished, which we need to address immediately. I couldn't stop staring at the screen, at that tiny flickering light that was my baby. My baby. Real. Alive. Still here. The father. Dr. Rivera said carefully. Does he know? He knew. The words came out thick. He left anyway. She squeezed my hand, and I saw understanding in her eyes. Well, you have support now. Mr. Moretti has made it very clear that you're to receive the best care possible. We're going to keep you overnight for observation, get some fluids in you, run some more tests. But Emma, I need you to understand. This pregnancy is high risk. The stress you've been under, the lack of proper nutrition and prenatal care, your working conditions, all of it needs to change. If you want to carry this baby to term, you need to start taking better care of yourself. I don't know how, I whispered, and it was the most honest thing I'd said in months. I don't know how to do any of this. One day at a time, she said gently, and you're not alone anymore. But I was alone. Vincent Moretti wasn't doing this out of kindness. He'd said it himself. The baby was leverage, a way to find Marcus. Once he got what he wanted, I'd be nothing to him again. Just another invisible girl in a city full of them. Dr. Rivera left to process the admission paperwork, and a nurse came in to start an IV. I watched the clear fluid drip into the line, feeling strangely disconnected from my own body. This was happening. All of this was actually happening. The door opened, and Vincent stepped inside. He'd taken off the hoodie, revealing a black t-shirt that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, and did nothing to hide the muscular frame underneath. In the harsh hospital lighting, I could see details I'd missed before. The slight gray at his temples, the fine lines around his eyes, the shadow of exhaustion that probably matched my own. The baby's okay? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. For now. I looked away from him, focusing on the IV bag. Dr. Rivera says I need to reduce stress, eat better, rest more, all the things I can't afford to do. You're taking leave from the cafe. It wasn't a question. Paid leave. And you're moving. My head snapped up. What? No! I can't. Your apartment is a 4th-floor walk-up in a building that should have been condemned a decade ago. You're pregnant with complications. You're not climbing those stairs every day. He pulled up a chair and sat, and somehow even that simple action carried weight. I own a building in Chelsea. There's a vacancy on the 2nd floor. You'll move there. I can't afford Chelsea. You're not paying rent. Mr. Moretti. Vincent. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and I could smell that cologne again, mixed with something earthier. Emma, let me be very clear about the situation. Marcus Chen stole from me. That money belonged to people who don't forget debts. If I don't recover it, there will be consequences. Not just for me, but for everyone in my organization. That baby you're carrying is the only connection I have to Marcus. He might not give a damn about you, but his child? That's different. Men like him, they get stupid about things like bloodlines and legacy, even when they're running. The words settled over me like ice water. You're going to use my baby to trap him. I'm going to use every resource at my disposal to find a man who stole from me and then went into hiding. His voice was steel wrapped in silk. That includes you and that baby, but here's what I can also promise you. While you're under my protection, no one will touch you. You'll have the best prenatal care available. You'll have a safe place to live. You'll have enough food, enough rest, Everything you need. And when this is over, when Marcus is dealt with, you'll still have all of that. I take care of people who are mine." "I'm not yours," I said, but it came out weaker than I intended. "No," he agreed, and something flickered in those dark eyes. "But you are now, whether you like it or not." A knock on the door interrupted whatever I might have said next. A man stepped in, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that had seen things and decided to stop showing emotion about them. He wore a suit that screamed expensive and carried himself with military precision. "Vincent," he said, then nodded to me. "Ma'am." "Dominic." Vincent stood, and the two men moved to the corner of the room, speaking in low voices I couldn't quite make out. But I caught enough. Words like surveillance, and properties, and Chen, and disappeared, and South America. Marcus was in South America, or at least that's where they thought he might be. Dominic left, and Vincent returned to the chair, but this time he looked tired, deeply, profoundly tired, in a way that made him seem almost human. "You said you have 1 month," I said quietly, remembering something from earlier, some detail my brain had flagged. "The driver, he mentioned something about time running out." Vincent's face went carefully blank. "You misheard. I didn't. I don't know where the courage came from. Maybe from the baby's heartbeat still echoing in my head. Maybe from pure exhaustion. But suddenly I needed to know, what happens in 1 month?" For a long moment he didn't answer. Then slowly, he reached up and rubbed his chest, right over his heart. An unconscious gesture, a pained gesture. "In 1 month," he said finally, "I'll be dead. Stage 4 lung cancer. Inoperable. The doctors gave me 6 months 3 weeks ago. I declined treatment. The room seemed to tilt again, but this time it had nothing to do with the cramping." "What?" "I've smoked since I was 15. Worked in my father's restaurant where everyone chain-smoked in the back. Spent 30 years breathing in secondhand smoke from every club and bar I've owned. The cancer spread to my liver before they caught it. Chemo would maybe buy me 3 extra months of being too sick to function. I'd rather have 1 good month than 4 bad ones." I stared at him. This dangerous man who'd swept into my life like a storm, and saw him clearly for the first time. The exhaustion, the way he'd rubbed his chest, the slight wheeze when he breathed. The intensity with which he moved through the world, like every moment mattered because he was running out of them. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He laughed, short and bitter. "Don't be. I've lived a long life, done things that would make you run screaming. I'm not a good man, Emma. I've hurt people, killed people, built an empire on blood and fear. If there's a hell, I've earned my place there." He met my eyes, and there was something raw in his expression. "But I'll be damned if I spend my last month letting Marcus Chen win, and I'll be damned if I let an innocent woman and her baby suffer because of his choices." "So what happens to me?" I asked. "After you're gone? After you find Marcus and get your money back? What happens to me then?" "You'll be taken care of." His voice was firm, absolute. "I'm setting up a trust. The café, the apartment, medical expenses, everything you need for the next 18 years. You and that baby will never want for anything." "Why?" The question burst out again, desperate. "Why would you do that for me?" Vincent was quiet for a long time, staring at something I couldn't see. When he finally spoke, his voice was so soft I almost didn't hear it, because I know what it's like to be abandoned by someone who should have protected you. Because that baby deserves better than the hand it's been dealt, and because... He paused, then looked at me with eyes that held decades of regret. Because I can't fix most of the damage I've done in this world, but maybe I can fix this one thing. The nurse returned then, bustling in with medication and cheerful instructions about rest. Vincent stood, straightening his shirt, and the vulnerable man I'd glimpsed for a moment disappeared behind the armor of power and control. "Get some sleep," he said. "I'll have clothes and toiletries sent over. Tomorrow we'll move you to the Chelsea apartment. I haven't agreed. Emma." He looked at me, and his expression was kind but immovable. "You don't really have a choice. Marcus made sure of that when he stole from me and left you behind. But I promise you, you're safer with me than you would be anywhere else." He left before I could argue, and I was alone in the two-white room with the steady beep of monitors and the weight of everything I'd learned pressing down on my chest. A dying mafia boss. A missing father who'd stolen millions. A baby I didn't know how to protect. And me, caught in the middle of it all, more terrified than I'd ever been in my life. The nurse dimmed the lights, and I closed my eyes, one hand pressed against my stomach where that tiny heart was still beating. "We're going to be okay," I whispered to the baby, and prayed it wasn't a lie. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the disorienting realization that I wasn't in the hospital anymore. The bed beneath me was obscenely comfortable. The sheets Egyptian cotton with a thread count I couldn't even imagine. And the room around me looked like something from an interior design magazine. Exposed brick walls, modern furniture in shades of gray and cream, artwork that was probably worth more than I'd earn in a lifetime. The Chelsea apartment. Vincent had mentioned it yesterday, but I'd been too exhausted and overwhelmed to fully process what that meant. Now, in the clear morning light, I processed it. I was living in a space that screamed money and taste, neither of which were mine. My hand went automatically to my stomach, checking, reassuring myself. The cramping had stopped sometime during the night, replaced by a low, manageable ache that Dr. Rivera had said was normal. They'd kept me at the hospital for 16 hours, pumping me full of fluids and nutrients, monitoring the baby constantly. And then, at some ungodly hour of the morning, Dominic had appeared with a wheelchair and instructions from Vincent. I sat up slowly, testing my body. Better. Not good, but better. There was a note on the nightstand, written in bold, masculine handwriting. "Kitchen is stocked. Eat something. Doctor's orders are on the counter. Follow them. Dominic will check on you at noon. Stay inside today. V. Stay inside." Like I was a prisoner. Or like I was being protected. I wasn't sure which was worse. The apartment was bigger than I'd realized in my exhausted state last night. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, an actual living room with a couch that probably cost more than my car, and a kitchen that made me want to cry. Granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, a refrigerator stocked with fresh fruit and vegetables, and things I hadn't been able to afford in months. Dr. Rivera's orders were indeed on the counter, typed and printed with clinical precision. 1. Bed rest for 48 hours. 2. Prenatal vitamins daily, provided. 3. High protein, high iron diet. 4. No caffeine. 5. Follow-up appointment Friday 10 a.m. 6. Call immediately if cramping returns. Next to the orders was a bottle of prenatal vitamins, a new phone, already programmed with numbers labeled Dr. Rivera, Vincent, and Dominic, and an envelope. I opened it with shaking hands and found a credit card with my name embossed on it and a note, "For necessities. No limit. Use it." This was insane. All of this was insane. I should grab my things and run. Go back to my shitty apartment with the broken heater and the stairs that made me wheeze. Go back to the cafe and pretend none of this had happened. Except I couldn't. The baby. The complications. Dr. Rivera's stern warning that if I didn't reduce stress and improve my living conditions, I could lose the pregnancy. And underneath all of that, the terrifying knowledge that Marcus had stolen from a man who operated outside the law, and I was now caught in whatever web of consequences that created. I made myself eat scrambled eggs that tasted like heaven after months of ramen and toast, and took the vitamins. Then I explored the apartment more thoroughly, trying to understand this gilded cage I'd been placed in. The second bedroom had been converted into an office, but it was empty except for a desk and chair. The closet in the master bedroom, though, that made me freeze. It was full of clothes, my size. Maternity clothes in soft fabrics and neutral colors, regular clothes that were nicer than anything I'd ever owned, pajamas, underwear still in packages, shoes arranged neatly on racks. Someone had gone shopping for me. Someone had known my exact size and anticipated what I'd need, and filled an entire closet while I was unconscious in a hospital bed. The intimacy of it made my skin crawl, and my heart race in equal measure. I changed into leggings and an oversized sweater, both butter-soft and probably designer, and was attempting to process the unreality of my situation when the doorbell rang. My heart jumped. Dominic wasn't supposed to come until noon, and it was barely 9. I approached the door cautiously, peering through the peephole. Vincent stood in the hallway, dressed in a black suit that fit him like it had been painted on, looking every inch the powerful man he was. No hoodie and jeans today. Today he looked like exactly what he was. Dangerous and wealthy and completely out of my league. I opened the door because what else could I do? "You're supposed to be resting," he said by way of greeting, his eyes tracking over me like he was cataloging every detail. "I am resting. I'm just doing it vertically." I stepped back to let him in, suddenly self-conscious about the bare feet and borrowed clothes. "What are you doing here?" "Checking on you." He moved into the apartment with that same calculated grace, his gaze sweeping the space. "Did you eat?" "Yes. Took the vitamins. Read the orders. I'm very obedient when people give me lists." The sarcasm slipped out before I could stop it, and I braced for anger. Instead, his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "Good. How are you feeling?" "Better. Confused. Overwhelmed." I crossed my arms, needing some kind of barrier between us. "The clothes. I had my assistant handle it. She's roughly your size, used herself as a reference point." He loosened his tie slightly, and I noticed the gesture seemed to help him breathe. "If anything doesn't fit or you need something else, let Dominic know." "Vincent." I made myself use his name, made myself look at him directly. "I need to understand what's happening here. You said the baby is leverage, that you're going to use it to find Marcus. How exactly does that work?" He studied me for a long moment, and I saw him making calculations behind those dark eyes. Then he moved to the couch and sat, gesturing for me to join him. I stayed standing. "Marcus is smart," Vincent said finally. "Smart enough to steal from me without getting caught immediately. Smart enough to disappear completely. New identity, new location, probably new appearance. We've tracked him to Colombia, but that's a big country, and he has resources now, my resources. So how does the baby help? Men like Marcus, they're narcissists. They believe they're special, chosen, better than everyone around them. That extends to their bloodline." He rubbed his chest again, that unconscious gesture of pain. "We've already started spreading rumors through certain channels, rumors that his pregnant girlfriend is under my protection, that I'm taking care of his child, that I might even be planning to raise it as my own." The words sent ice through my veins. "You're not—" "Of course not. But Marcus doesn't know that. All he knows is that Vincent Moretti has his woman and his baby." Vincent's voice was cold, clinical. "His ego won't allow it. He'll reach out, try to negotiate, try to prove he's still in control of the situation. And when he does, we'll have him." I sank onto the arm of a chair, my leg suddenly unable to hold me. "You're using me as bait. I'm using the situation to my advantage. There's a difference." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Emma, I meant what I said yesterday. You're under my protection now. No one will touch you while you're carrying that baby. Not my enemies, not Marcus if he's stupid enough to show his face, not anyone. You're safer here than you would be anywhere else in this city. Until you die." The words came out harsh, cruel. "What happens to your protection then?" Something flickered across his face. Pain, regret. Maybe both. "I've made arrangements. The trust I mentioned, it's already being set up. When I'm gone, you'll have financial security. The apartment will be yours, paid off. The cafe will generate income in your name. You'll be taken care of. By who? Who takes over when you're gone? My nephew, Marco. He's young, ambitious. But he has a code. He won't touch you or the baby." Vincent's jaw tightened. I'm making sure of it. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe that this wasn't just a temporary reprieve before everything collapsed, but I'd believed Marcus too, and look where that had gotten me. "I need air," I said abruptly, moving toward the balcony door. "Emma, I'm not leaving. I'm just going to stand on the balcony for 5 minutes and pretend my life isn't completely insane." I slid the door open, letting in the cool November air. "You can watch if you want. Make sure I don't try to escape." I stepped outside, gripping the railing and breathing in the city smell. Car exhaust and street food and that indefinable scent that was just New York. Below me, people went about their normal lives, unaware that somewhere up here was a pregnant waitress caught between a dying crime boss and a thief who'd left her behind. I heard Vincent come up behind me, felt his presence like heat against my back. "I know you're scared," he said quietly. "I know none of this is what you wanted. But Emma, you need to understand something. That baby you're carrying, it's innocent. It didn't ask to be caught in this mess any more than you did. And innocent things, they're rare in my world, worth protecting." I turned to face him, and found him closer than I'd expected. Close enough that I could see the fine lines around his eyes, the silver threading through his dark hair, the exhaustion etched into every feature. Close enough that I could smell smoke underneath the expensive cologne. "You're dying," I said softly, "and you're spending your last month on this. On me. On revenge against Marcus. Why? Because I don't have anything else." The honesty in his voice stole my breath. No wife, no children, no legacy except blood and money. My businesses will be divided among my lieutenants. My properties will be sold or absorbed. Everything I built will scatter to the wind within a year of my death. But this, making sure Marcus pays for what he did, making sure you and that baby are safe, this I can finish. "That's not legacy," I whispered. "That's just tying up loose ends." His hand came up, hovering near my face but not quite touching. "Maybe. Or maybe it's the closest thing to redemption a man like me can get." We stood there for a moment, the cold wind whipping around us, and I saw him clearly. Not the dangerous crime boss, not the wealthy property owner, not the dying man, just Vincent, human and flawed and running out of time. My phone, the new one he'd given me, buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting Dominic or maybe Dr. Rivera. Instead, it was a text from an unknown number. "I know where you are. I know what he's doing. Meet me alone, or I tell everyone what you really are." The blood drained from my face. Vincent saw my expression and took the phone from my numb fingers, his face darkening as he read the message. "Marcus," he said, and his voice promised death. Vincent's hand closed around the phone with controlled fury, his knuckles going white. I watched his face transform. The brief vulnerability I'd glimpsed moments ago, vanishing behind something cold and lethal. This was the man people feared. This was the man Marcus had been stupid enough to steal from. Inside. Now. His voice left no room for argument. I stumbled back into the apartment, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Vincent was already dialing, the phone pressed to his ear as he locked and bolted the door behind us with swift, practiced movements. "Dominic, we have contact. Marcus just texted Emma's new number." A pause. "I don't know how he got it. That's what you're going to find out. I want eyes on every entrance to this building. Full lockdown protocol. And get our tech guy to trace this." He rattled off the number from the text, his voice clipped and efficient. 10 minutes. My office. He ended the call and turned to me, and I saw him visibly force himself to soften, to remember that I wasn't one of his soldiers. "Emma, I need you to think carefully. Have you told anyone where you are? Anyone at all?" "No. I haven't even had this phone for 12 hours. My voice shook. "The only people who have this number are the ones you programmed into it. Then we have a leak." He moved to the windows, checking them with quick, methodical efficiency. "Someone in my organization told Marcus where you are and gave him your number, which means someone close to me is a traitor." The word hung in the air like poison. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly freezing despite the apartment's warmth. What did he mean, what I really am? I'm not anything. I'm just... He's trying to rattle you, make you doubt yourself, doubt me, doubt the protection I've offered. Vincent returned to where I stood, and his hand settled on my shoulders, warm, steady, grounding. It's a manipulation tactic. Marcus is a coward and a liar, but he's good at getting into people's heads. Don't let him. He wants me to meet him alone. I looked up at Vincent, seeing my own fear reflected in those dark eyes. What if he tries to? He won't get the chance. You're not going anywhere without security. You're not meeting him, period. His grip tightened slightly, protective. I won't let him touch you. A knock on the door made me jump. Vincent moved in front of me automatically, his body a shield, one hand moving to his waist where I now saw a gun holstered under his jacket. How had I not noticed that before? "It's Dominic," came a voice from the hallway. Vincent checked the peephole before opening the door. Dominic entered with two other men I didn't recognize, both large, both carrying themselves like soldiers. They spread out through the apartment, checking rooms, windows, closets. "Building's secure," Dominic said. "I've got 4 men outside, 2 on the street, cameras monitoring all exits." The text came from a burner phone, currently showing a location in Queens. "But it's probably a fake tower." He glanced at me, something like sympathy in his hard eyes. "Ma'am, I need to check your phone. Make sure there's no tracking software." I handed it over numbly, watching as he connected it to some device and scrolled through screens I didn't understand. Vincent guided me to the couch, sitting beside me close enough that our thighs touched. The contact should have felt presumptuous, but instead it felt like the only solid thing in a world that had gone liquid and unstable. "How did he get the number?" Vincent asked, his voice deadly quiet. "3 possibilities," Dominic said, still working on the phone. 1. Someone in the organization leaked it. 2. He hacked our systems. 3. He has someone inside the hospital who accessed her records. Find out which. And Dominic, when you do find out, I want them breathing when you bring them to me. I have questions before they die. The casual way Vincent said it, like he was ordering coffee, not someone's execution, should have terrified me. Maybe it did. Maybe I was just too numb to feel it properly. "The phone's clean," Dominic announced. "No tracking, no spyware. Whatever leak exists, it's not through her device. Good." Vincent stood, his hand trailing briefly across my shoulder, a gesture that felt both possessive and protective. "Emma stays here. No one gets in without my explicit approval. I don't care if they claim to be God himself. And I want that number traced, surveillance pulled from every camera within 5 blocks of the hospital and this building, and a list of everyone who had access to our systems in the last 48 hours. Already on it." Dominic pocketed my phone and handed it back. "Marco's asking questions. Wants to know why we're in lockdown." Something flickered across Vincent's face. Tension, maybe wariness. "Tell him I'll brief him tonight, and make sure he understands that Emma is off limits." "Completely off limits. Boss, you know he's going to push back on that. He already thinks you're being too soft about the Chen situation. Marco can think whatever he wants." Vincent's voice went cold. "He's not in charge. Not yet. And by the time he is, Emma and the baby will be protected by legal agreements he can't break without destroying everything I've built. I've made sure of it." Dominic nodded and left with his men, their footsteps heavy in the hallway. The apartment felt too quiet after they'd gone, too empty, despite Vincent's presence. "Marco," I said quietly, "your nephew. The one who's supposed to take over. He doesn't like me. He doesn't know you. And he thinks sentiment is weakness." Vincent returned to the couch, but this time he sat further away, like he'd realized how close we'd been before. Marco is good at what he does, cold, efficient, ruthless when necessary, but he doesn't understand that sometimes protecting the innocent is better business than sacrificing them. Is that what this is? Business? He looked at me, and something in his expression made my breath catch. It started that way. Find Marcus, recover the money, eliminate the threat. Simple. Clean. But then I walked into that cafe and saw you crying behind the counter, looking like you were one bad moment away from shattering, and I thought... He stopped, shook his head. "It doesn't matter what I thought. Tell me." I don't know why I pushed, why it suddenly mattered so much. Maybe because in a world gone crazy, his motivations were the one thing I needed to understand. "I thought you looked like my sister." The words came out rough, reluctant. "Maria. She was 19 when she got pregnant by some piece of shit who promised her everything and delivered nothing. My father threw her out, said she'd shame the family. I was barely 21, trying to establish myself, and I didn't protect her the way I should have. She died in childbirth, alone in some charity hospital because she couldn't afford better. The pain in his voice was raw, decades old, but still bleeding. I reached out without thinking, my hand covering his where it rested on his knee. "Vincent, I'm sorry." I swore after that. I'd never let another woman suffer like she did. Not if I could prevent it. So when I saw you, pregnant and crying and clearly terrified, all I could see was Maria. All I could think was that I had a chance to do it right this time, to protect someone the way I failed to protect her. His hand turned under mine, fingers threading through mine with surprising gentleness. The gesture felt intimate in a way that had nothing to do with desire, and everything to do with connection. "The baby," I said softly. "Maria's baby. What happened?" "Stillborn. They both died within hours of each other." His thumb traced circles on my palm, unconscious and soothing. I carry that guilt every day, every single day for 20 years. I've wondered if things would have been different if I'd just been stronger, braver, more willing to stand up to my father. We sat in silence, hands linked, breathing in sync. Outside, the city moved on, sirens wailing, horns honking, life continuing obliviously. Inside, we were suspended in a moment of shared grief and understanding. My phone buzzed. Another text. "You have 24 hours to meet me or I start making calls. The press would love to know about Vincent Moretti's pregnant mistress. Wonder what that would do to his reputation." Vincent read it over my shoulder, his body going rigid. He's desperate. Making threats he can't back up. "My reputation isn't built on being a saint, Emma. The press knowing about you won't destroy me." "But it'll expose you," I said, understanding dawning. "If Marcus goes public, it puts a target on me, on the baby. Your enemies will see us as leverage too. Which is why you're not leaving this apartment." He stood, pacing to the window. "I need to accelerate the timeline. Force Marcus to make a move before he can go public." "How?" He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "By making him angry. By making him so furious he stops thinking clearly and makes a mistake." He showed me what he'd typed, a message ready to send. "Your bastard will carry my name. Your woman is mine now. Come and take them back if you dare. That'll work?" I whispered. "It'll work. Men like Marcus, their ego is everything. Telling him I'm claiming what's his, it'll eat at him until he can't stand it. He'll come for you. And when he does, we'll be ready." "And what if he hurts someone trying to get to me? What if innocent people get caught in the crossfire?" Vincent turned from the window, and his expression was bleak. "Then that's on me. Add it to the list of sins I'll answer for." He moved toward the door. "I need to go coordinate with Dominic. Set up the trap. You'll be safe here. There are men outside, cameras everywhere, and this door is reinforced steel. Don't open it for anyone but me or Dominic." "Understand?" I nodded. Fear and something else. Something that felt dangerously like trust, warring in my chest. He paused at the door, looking back at me. "Emma, when this is over, when Marcus is dealt with and you're safe, you can walk away, take the apartment, the money, raise your baby far away from all of this. I won't stop you. But right now, I need you to trust me." Can you do that? Could I? Trust a dying crime boss who'd inserted himself into my life through violence and power? Trust a man who'd admitted to killing people, who carried a gun like other people carried wallets, who operated in a world of shadows and blood? I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw past the danger to the man underneath. The one who'd mourned his sister for 20 years. The one who'd checked on a crying waitress instead of ignoring her. The one who was spending his last month trying to protect someone he didn't have to care about. "Yes," I said, "I trust you." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe relief. He nodded once, sharp and decisive, and left. I sat alone in the beautiful apartment, one hand on my stomach where my baby was growing, and wondered if I'd just made the smartest or stupidest decision of my life. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the city in shades of gold and crimson. Tomorrow, Marcus would see Vincent's message. Tomorrow, everything would change. The night was endless. I lay in the too comfortable bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the baby flutter for the first time, tiny butterfly movements that made me catch my breath. Dr. Rivera had said I might start feeling movement soon, but I hadn't expected it now, in the middle of this chaos. "Hi," I whispered to my stomach, tears sliding down my temples. "I know this is scary. I know everything is uncertain, but I promise you, I'm going to keep you safe, whatever it takes." My phone lit up on the nightstand. 3:47 a.m. A message from Vincent. "Can't sleep either?" I hesitated, then typed back, "Baby's moving. First time." The response came immediately. "That's good. Means everything's progressing normally. You should rest, though. You should too. Aren't you supposed to be conserving your strength?" A long pause. Then, "Hard to rest when I'm planning a war." I stared at those words, feeling the weight of them. Somewhere in the city, Vincent was awake, dying, planning how to catch a man who'd betrayed him, and somehow, impossibly, I was at the center of it all. Will it work? Your plan? It has to. I don't have time for a backup. The brutal honesty made my chest ache. "Vincent." "Sleep, Emma. Tomorrow's going to be difficult." I didn't sleep. Instead, I watched the sky lighten from black to gray to pale pink, thinking about choices and consequences, and the strange turns life takes. 6 months ago, I'd been a different person, optimistic despite my circumstances, believing that hard work and good intentions would eventually lead to something better. Then Marcus had smiled at me across a cafe table, and I'd let myself hope for more. Now I was carrying his child, living in luxury bought with blood money, under the protection of a man who'd admitted to murder, waiting for a confrontation that could destroy everything. At 8 a.m., my phone rang. "Dr. Rivera. Emma, I'm moving up your appointment. Can you come in this morning? 10 o'clock? Something in her voice made my pulse quicken. "Is something wrong? Is the baby?" "The baby's fine. But I got your updated blood work from the hospital, and there are some things we need to discuss. Nothing emergency, but sooner is better than later." I agreed because what else could I do, and immediately texted Vincent. His response was instant. "I'll take you. Dominic will drive. You don't have to. I'll be there at 9:30. He arrived exactly on time, looking like he hadn't slept at all. The exhaustion was more evident today. Shadows under his eyes, a tightness around his mouth that spoke of pain he was managing but not escaping. He wore another expensive suit, black this time, with a dark shirt that made him look like a shadow himself. "Any response from Marcus?" I asked as we rode the elevator down, flanked by 2 silent bodyguards. He saw the message. He's furious. Making threats, calling in favors, trying to find out exactly where you are. Vincent's hand settled on my lower back, guiding me into the waiting SUV. He'll make his move soon. Today, maybe tomorrow. And then it ends. The drive to the hospital was tense. I watched the city slide past, people going to work, living normal lives, unaware of the violence simmering beneath the surface. Vincent made calls in Italian, rapid-fire conversations that sounded like orders and confirmations. I caught my name once, and bambino, and something that sounded like proteggere, protect. Dr. Rivera's office was on the 10th floor, all soothing colors and soft music that did nothing to calm my nerves. She greeted us with professional warmth, though her eyes lingered on Vincent with recognition and maybe a hint of wariness. "Mr. Moretti, Emma," she gestured us into her private office. "Thank you for coming in on short notice. The baby," I started. "Is fine," she assured me quickly. "Heartbeat strong, measurements good. But Emma, your blood work shows some concerning deficiencies. Iron, vitamin D, B12, all critically low. Combined with your stress levels and the cramping episode, I'm classifying this as a high-risk pregnancy, which means I want to see you weekly, and I want you on strict modified bed rest for the next month." "A month?" I felt Vincent's hand find mine, squeezing gently. "I can't just—" "You can, and you will," Dr. Rivera said firmly. "Emma, you're at significant risk for preterm labor if we don't get these levels stabilized. The next few weeks are critical for fetal development. I know it's hard. I know you probably need to work. But you need to think about what's best for your baby." "She doesn't need to work," Vincent said quietly. "Money isn't an issue. She can rest as much as necessary." Dr. Rivera looked between us, and I saw her putting pieces together. I see. Well, that makes things simpler. Emma, I'm prescribing iron supplements in addition to the prenatal vitamins. I want you eating protein with every meal, lots of leafy greens, staying hydrated. No heavy lifting, minimal stairs, plenty of sleep. Think of yourself as an incubator for the next month. Your only job is growing that baby. She continued with more instructions, scheduling follow-ups, discussing warning signs. I heard maybe half of it, too overwhelmed by the reality that my body was failing at the one thing it was supposed to do naturally. As we left the office, Vincent's phone rang. He checked the screen, and his face went hard. I need to take this. Wait here. He stepped away, speaking in low, urgent tones. I watched him through the glass partition, the way his shoulders tensed, the sharp gesture of his free hand, the cold fury that settled over his features like a mask. When he returned, everything about him screamed danger. Marcus just grabbed Sarah, he said flatly. Your co-worker from the Café. He's demanding a trade. You for her, tonight at midnight, Red Hook warehouses. The blood drained from my face. Sarah? But she has nothing to do with any of this. She's just a way to get to you. Vincent's hand cupped my face, forcing me to focus on him instead of the panic. Emma, listen to me. This is what I've been waiting for. He's exposed himself, given us a location, shown his hand. We can end this tonight. By giving him what he wants? By trading me? No. His voice was absolute steel. By making him think we're giving him what he wants. You'll be nowhere near those warehouses. I'll have someone else in your place wearing your clothes. At a distance he can't see clearly. When he shows himself, we take him. And Sarah? My voice cracked. What happens to her? We'll get her out. I have people who specialize in extractions. The moment we have a location confirmed, they'll move in. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, surprising gentleness from a man made of violence. Trust me. Please. I did. God help me, I did. The rest of the day was a blur of preparation. Vincent's apartment, different from mine, all dark wood and leather and the smell of expensive cigars, became a command center. Men came and went. Maps were spread across tables. Voices spoke in code I didn't understand. I sat in a corner, trying to stay out of the way, one hand pressed to my stomach. Marco arrived around 6, late 30s, handsome in a cold way, with eyes that assessed me like I was a problem to be solved. So you're the waitress my uncle's burning his last days protecting? Marco, Vincent's voice cracked like a whip. Careful. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. You're dying, Vincent. And instead of preparing the transition, securing the territories, handling the Chen situation with efficiency, you're playing hero for an innocent woman carrying an innocent child. Vincent moved between us, his body language pure threat. This discussion is over. Marco's jaw tightened, but he backed down. Fine. But when this goes south, and it will, remember I warned you. He left, and the tension in the room was suffocating. He's right, I said quietly. You should be focused on your legacy, not on me. Vincent turned, and the look on his face made my breath catch. You are my legacy, Emma. You and that baby. The only good thing I'll leave behind in a world full of bad. At 11 p.m., everyone moved into position. I watched from Vincent's apartment through security feeds as a woman, my height, my build, wearing my jacket, stood in the shadows of the Red Hook warehouse district. Multiple teams surrounded the area, invisible but present. Vincent stood next to me, speaking into a comm unit, orchestrating everything with precision. Movement, north entrance, someone reported. 2 vehicles, 4 men visible. Chen is in the second car. My heart hammered as I watched Marcus emerge on the grainy footage. Even from this distance, I recognized the way he moved, the confident stride of a man who thought he was in control. Hold, Vincent commanded. Let him get comfortable. Let him think he's winning. Marcus approached the woman in my jacket, calling out something I couldn't hear. The woman turned, face hidden, and I saw the moment Marcus realized something was wrong. He reached for a gun, shouting orders, and suddenly everything was chaos. Gunfire erupted. Muzzle flashes lit up the night. I gasped, gripping the edge of the desk, as Vincent's teams moved in with military precision. Marcus's men went down fast. Not dead, I noticed, just incapacitated. They wanted prisoners, people to question. But Marcus ran. "Don't let him reach the water," Vincent barked into the comm. "I want him alive." I watched them chase him across the feed, between buildings, through alleyways. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold onto the desk. Vincent's hand covered mine, steady and warm. "Sarah's secure," Dominic's voice came through. "She's scared, but unharmed. Medics are checking her now." "Copy that." Vincent's eyes never left the screens. "Chen?" "Cornered. North warehouse. He's armed but alone. I'm on my way." Vincent released my hand, checking his gun with practiced ease. "Emma, stay here. Dominic's outside the door. Don't open it for anyone but me." "Vincent, wait." I grabbed his arm, feeling the solid muscle beneath the expensive suit. "Don't die tonight, please. You said you had a month. Don't make it less." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, warmth, maybe affection. He leaned down and pressed his lips to my forehead, brief and chaste but loaded with meaning. "I'll come back," he promised. "I always do." The next hour was torture. I paced Vincent's apartment, watching feeds that showed nothing useful, checking my phone obsessively, pressing my hands against my stomach and whispering reassurances to the baby. The silence was deafening. Finally, at 1:47 a.m., the door opened. Vincent walked in, and he was covered in blood. I screamed, rushing to him, hands hovering over the stains on his shirt, his jacket, trying to find the wound. "Oh God, where are you hurt? We need to—" "It's not mine." His hands caught my wrists, stopping my frantic searching. "Emma, breathe. I'm fine. The blood isn't mine." "Marcus?" I whispered. "Alive, barely. He's in custody, and my people are very good at making men talk." Vincent guided me to the couch, sitting heavily like the weight of everything had finally caught up with him. He gave up everything, where the money is, who helped him, what his plans were. "It's over." I sat beside him, still trembling. "Sarah?" "Home. Shaken but safe. I've assigned someone to watch her apartment for the next few weeks, just in case Marcus had partners we don't know about yet." He leaned his head back, closing his eyes. "It's done, Emma. You're safe now. The baby's safe." The relief was so intense it almost hurt. I put my hand over my mouth, feeling sobs building in my chest. Vincent's arm came around me, pulling me against his side, and I let myself break down completely. All the fear, all the stress, all the terror of the last few days poured out in ugly, gasping cries. "Shh," he murmured, his hand stroking my hair. "I've got you. You're okay." When I finally calmed enough to speak, I pulled back to look at him. Really look at him. The exhaustion was bone deep now, his face drawn with pain he couldn't quite hide. But there was satisfaction there too. Completion. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you rest. You focus on that baby, on getting healthy, on building the life you want." His hand moved to my stomach, hovering. "May I?" I nodded, and he pressed his palm flat against the small swell. We sat like that for a long moment, his hand warm through my shirt, feeling for the movements I'd felt earlier. "What about you?" I whispered. "What happens to you now?" "I finish putting my affairs in order. I make sure the trust is ironclad, that Marco can't touch it no matter what. I make sure you have everything you need." His hand didn't move from my stomach, and then I let go. "Vincent. Emma." He looked at me, and his expression was peaceful in a way I hadn't seen before. "I'm not afraid of dying. I've lived 42 years, most of them violently. I've done terrible things, hurt people who didn't deserve it, built an empire on suffering. I accepted a long time ago that men like me don't get happy endings. But tonight, I protected someone who needed protecting. I stopped a man who deserved stopping. I made sure an innocent woman and her innocent baby will be taken care of after I'm gone." His hand pressed a little firmer against my stomach. "That's closer to redemption than I ever thought I'd get." Tears slid down my face again. But these were different. You're a good man, Vincent Moretti. I don't care what you've done in the past. Right now, in this moment, you're good." He smiled, a real smile, small but genuine. "Don't let Marco hear you say that. He already thinks I've gone soft." We sat together in the quiet apartment as the city slept around us. His hand stayed on my stomach, and I covered it with mine, linking our fingers together, two broken people, brought together by violence and circumstance, finding something like peace in the eye of the storm. 3 weeks later, I stood in a cemetery in Queens, dressed in black, watching them lower Vincent Moretti into the ground. The cancer had moved faster than anyone expected. 1 week after he'd caught Marcus, he'd collapsed. 2 weeks of decline, 3 days in a coma. And then, on a cold December morning, he'd simply stopped breathing. Marco stood across from me, flanked by men in expensive suits. He'd honored Vincent's wishes. The trust was untouchable. The apartment was mine. The monthly payments were already set up. But the look he gave me was cold, assessing, a problem temporarily solved but not forgotten. I placed my hand on my stomach, 19 weeks now, finally showing, and said a silent goodbye to the man who'd protected me when he had no reason to, who'd spent his last days making sure I'd be safe. The priest said something about redemption and forgiveness. I thought about Vincent's hand on my stomach, his quiet promise that I'd be taken care of, his final gift to a world that had taken more from him than it ever gave back. As they covered the casket with earth, I felt the baby move, stronger now, more insistent, a reminder that life continued, that even in death there was hope, that Vincent Moretti's last act had been one of protection rather than destruction. I left the cemetery without speaking to Marco, without acknowledging the dozens of dangerous men who'd come to pay their respects. I went back to the Chelsea apartment, made myself tea, and sat on the couch where Vincent had once sat beside me. On the coffee table was an envelope, left by the estate lawyer. Inside, a letter in Vincent's bold handwriting, "Emma. If you're reading this, I'm gone." Good. I was tired of hurting anyway. The money in the trust will take care of you and the baby for life. The apartment is yours, fully paid. I've set up a college fund, medical coverage, everything you might need. Marco won't touch any of it. I've made sure of that legally and otherwise. I need you to know something. That baby you're carrying deserves better than Marcus Chen for a father. You'll be tempted to tell the child about their biological father someday, but I'm asking you not to. Marcus is alive, locked up in a place where he'll never see daylight again, where he can't hurt you or anyone else. Let him be forgotten. Instead, tell your child about the man who protected them before they were born. Tell them about the cafe owner who made sure their mother was safe. You don't have to call me their father. I know I'm not. But let me be something. A guardian angel, maybe. A ghost who watched over them. You told me I was a good man, Emma. I wasn't. But for you, for that brief moment, I tried to be. That's the best legacy a man like me can hope for. Be happy. Raise your baby in sunshine, not shadows. And sometimes, when you're strong, think of me. Vincent. I folded the letter carefully, pressing it against my chest. Outside, snow had started to fall, covering the city in white, cleaning it, at least temporarily, making it new again. Your Uncle Vincent, I whispered to my stomach, testing the words. He saved us. He died making sure we'd be okay, and we will be. We'll be okay. The baby kicked in response, strong and sure. I smiled through my tears and looked out at the city Vincent had ruled and protected, and finally left behind. Somewhere out there, life was moving forward, and so would I. With Vincent Moretti's final gift cradled inside me, with his protection still wrapped around us like invisible armor, I would build the life he'd made possible. Not just for me, but for the baby who would grow up knowing that once, when it mattered most, a dangerous man had chosen to be kind. That was redemption enough.